Yo, what is up guys? It's Pedro here, and in today's video I will be reacting to Mel Kiper's mock draft where he had the Washington Commanders selecting Kyle Hamilton in the first round and wide receiver George Pickens in the second round. So I'll give you guys my reaction to those picks and how I think both of those players would fit on the Washington Commanders. So if you guys are new, make sure to subscribe for Washington and NFL content on the road to 7,500 subscribers. So please help me get there also with that like button and turn on those notifications and go ahead and follow the So we are 15 days away from the first round of the 2022 NFL draft, and I am excited. And now we're hearing a bunch of smoke screens and more people are putting out their final mock drafts. And Mel Kiper today put out his mock draft, and he had the Washington Commanders selecting Kyle Hamilton at 11 and George Pickens at 47. So first, let's go ahead and read what he had to say for each of those picks. So for Kyle Hamilton, he says, Hamilton has been dinged a little bit because of his 40 time, which was a 4.59 at the combine and a little slower at his pro day. He's a fantastic player, but he doesn't have rare physical tools, which means he could fall out of the top 10. I would want him on my team at 6'4". He could play multiple positions from center fielder to box linebacker. He would make plays for a Washington defense that disappointed in 2021. So that's what he said for, our first round pick, and I'll talk about more about Kyle Hamilton in a little bit. And then for our second round pick, he had us picking, like I said earlier, wide receiver from Georgia, George Pickens, and he said, I love this for Washington, which could get a 6'3" outside receiver with number one traits. He tore his ACL last spring and returned late in the 2021 season, making an impact down the stretch. It's no guarantee he lasts until round 2. Teams could think long term and be patient with him, but the Commanders should try to pair him with Terry McLaurin, and I would like this pick a lot because I know some people want us absolutely to go offense round 1 and specifically wide receiver because they think we really need a receiver, and I do think we need to add another receiver. But I think if there's elite talent on the board like Kyle Hamilton or maybe someone like Sauce Gardner, if he's there, I would take those two guys at 11. But this would be the best of both worlds because then you add a receiver that a lot of people think's a top 10 talent, but he's dropping because of the ACL injury, and he wasn't really able to play last year. So getting him in the second, I don't think he's going to be there at 47. I think he's kind of going to get picked in that 28 to 40 range. So I don't think he's going to be here, but if he is, I would definitely be happy if Washington went ahead and drafted him because he would be that perfect fit for Washington. They need another outside receiver, and he's a big body, 6'3", and he would be that outside receiver they need, and he's a good fit for Carson Wentz, who does like those guys that can go up there and get those contested catches. So I really like this draft that Mel Kiper did, and he doesn't necessarily do what he thinks that the team should do. He says he does what he's hearing around the league and kind of some of his evaluations on the player. That's how he gets his mock draft. So some of this is based off of what he's hearing from, sources inside the league, GMs, stuff like that. So I would absolutely love this for the Washington Commanders. Okay, so let's start off with Kyle Hamilton. And again, I know some people don't want us to draft defense, but in my opinion, if Kyle Hamilton is there, I would definitely be intrigued to take him, and he would probably be my number 1 player at 11. Again, though, I know some people really want a receiver, but I just think that historically, especially the last few years, there's been really good value at the receiver position in that second to third round range. You look at 2019, the top receivers, and I think the first round receivers, Hollywood Brown, who's been okay, but I don't know if he's been worthy of a first round pick. N'Keal Harry, I think there was one other guy, and then the second to third round guys, you look at DK Metcalf, Deebo Samuel, AJ Brown, Terry McLaurin, and I think Deontay Johnson was also drafted later that year. So there's really good talent in that second to third round range, and I think Washington could get a stud receiver in the second to third round, possibly like George Pickens, but I do understand the people that want to get a receiver in the first round, and I'm one of those guys. But if elite talent like Kyle Hamilton's there, I want to take him. He is 6'4", 220 pounds. Birthplace was Atlanta, Georgia. Junior out of Notre Dame this year, and he had over 30 tackles and 3 interceptions. Was injured. I don't know what it was. I think it was a shoulder injury, but was out for the last few games of the season. So I just looked it up, and it actually was a knee injury, and he's out for about 6-ish games. So that's why his stats are a little bit lower in terms of the amount of tackles. But Kyle Hamilton, in my opinion, would fit a big need and a big hole for the Washington Commanders, for their defense, because he can play free safety, strong safety, that will linebacker position, buffalo nickel. And I know some people don't think he can play free safety. I personally do. Let's look at some of his, his player profile on NFL.com. You guys can see some of the things right here. 4.59 40-yard dash, 38-inch vertical jump, 6.9 cone drill, not the best. 20-yard shuttle, 4.32, and you guys can see some of the things right here. But if you watch some of his film, he's a great tackler, an amazing open field tackler. He has great instincts. He's always around the ball, has good hands for a safety. Just overall a very good player, big hitter as well over the middle. And, I think, again, he can play free safety. Maybe it's not his, biggest strength, but I definitely think he can. And some of his weaknesses is obviously that 4.59 40, and then he ran a little bit slower at his pro day. He isn't able to get off of blocks real quick, and then he also he can cover in the slot, in nickel, in the tight ends and kind of the bigger, slower receivers, but the slot receivers, he's not going to be able to cover those guys or any quick guys, shifty guys. He's not very good at that. He gets beat over the top sometimes when he lines up near the line of scrimmage against those smaller receivers. So that's something that they need to do. They need to put him in those situations where he's not lined up against these smaller, faster, shiftier receivers, because that is not his best strength. But again, you could play him at free safety and have Cam Curl at strong safety and Bobby McCain at that slot corner position. That is the ideal scenario. But if you think Kyle Hamilton is not a free safety, you can play him at that buffalo nickel position, sometimes at will linebacker, and rotate him in out of those 2 safety spots if Cam Curl or Bobby McCain needs a breather. So he would kind of be playing, 40-ish% of the time at buffalo nickel, sometimes at will linebacker, and then maybe like 10, 15, 20% of the time at that or 20% of the snaps at free safety or strong safety in that certain scenario. Or this would be a little bit trickier. You could play him at strong safety, kind of more in the box, and then Cam Curl in free safety, and then Bobby McCain in the slot. And I think Bobby McCain's best, spot is to play him in that slot in the, nickel position. And then, you ideally want Cameron Curl as strong safety, but he did play some free safety last year. He does have the skills to do it. He played a little bit of it in college, and he was fine last year at free safety. He was an above average free safety, but he's a very, very good strong safety. So ideally, you have him at the strong safety position and, Kyle Hamilton at free safety or buffalo nickel. But the point is, Kyle Hamilton can pretty much play anywhere. He is very, very versatile, which Ron Rivera loves, and that is why I think drafting him at 11 would be a good pick. Again, some of the weaknesses you guys can see right here, and then sources tell us right here. Really great kid, needs to love the weight room a little bit more, but he's going to keep getting bigger. I wouldn't play him at linebacker because I think that actually limits his impact. He's a better pure talent than Arizona Cardinals linebacker Isaiah Simmons was coming out, and that's a scouting director for an NFC team. So hey, who knows? Could be the Washington Commanders scouting director. But I like Kyle Hamilton, and I would 100% take him at 11 because I do think he can play free safety. If you think he can play free safety, then I understand you guys not wanting to take him at 11. But I do think he has the skills to play free safety, and even if he doesn't, I still would be willing to take him at 11 because of everything else he can offer. So now on to the second round pick that Mel Kiper had us taking, and that is wide receiver George Pickens from Georgia, of course, 6'3", 200 pounds, ran a 4.47 40-yard dash. So pretty good right there. Not amazing, but solid coming off that ACL injury. 33-inch vertical jump, not very impressive. And you guys can see the broad jump right here. But George Pickens, I would love us getting him in the second. Let me read his stats first before we go into his player profile. So in 2019, his freshman year at Georgia, 49 catches, 727 yards for 8 touchdowns. Second year, 36 catches, 513 yards, 6 touchdowns. He didn't play as many games. I think it was 8 or something. He averaged 64 yards a game though, which was more than he averaged in his first season. So, if he would have played all games, I think he was on pace for 770 yards. I think that's what the math came out to, and he would have had, some more touchdowns as well. I think the season was shortened a little bit because of the pandemic, and then he tore his ACL in this past spring, and that took him out for almost the entire season this year. But he came back, grinded his way back just so he can play in those final few games of the season. That's what you like to see, that work ethic coming back from an injury like that. And he had a huge catch in a big game, a 52-yard catch. So he was somewhat impactful last year in the final few games he had. But George Pickens, obviously, if he didn't have that ACL injury, he would be drafted much, much higher, probably in the first round. Yeah, very likely in the first round. And big body receiver, like I said, he's pretty quick. He's got great hands, which is what you want. And this would be a perfect receiver, in my opinion, for Carson Wentz. So let's read some of the strengths and weaknesses for him. Battle back from spring ACL tear to play late in the 2021 season. And I haven't watched any film on him, so I'm just reading off of what I've seen from the highlights and the draft profile right here. Offhand and burst help defeat and overtake press, makes quick stop and turn on drive routes, creates throwing windows with suddenness at break points. And you guys can see some of the other things right here, and some of the weaknesses obviously came down with that ACL injury, which really sucks, and might still be hindering him a little bit, but I think he will be fine for this season. And you line up, if Washington drafts him at 47, you have Curtis Samuel in the slot, Terry McLaurin on the outside, and George Pickens as that other outside receiver. And of course, Curtis Samuel can rotate in and out from the slot to the outside. Same thing with Terry McLaurin. But ideally, those are the guys you have in. And, there's some sources coming out of Georgia that have told, guys like, I can't remember who it was, Daniel Jeremiah, some other guys like that, saying that, they think George Pickens might be a better talent coming out of Georgia than A.J. Green, who was drafted very high when he was drafted and had a great career, still is balling out a little bit. So he is very talented. It's just, can he stay healthy? And, can Washington put those pieces together in terms of his talent? Because it is there, and I think it would be a good pick for the Washington Commanders to make. You pick defense in the first round, but you get a stud receiver in the second round who has a ton of talent. And then after that, you could go in the fourth round, you could go into interior offensive line, interior defensive line, maybe a tight end you like, maybe a running back you like, maybe Brian Robinson, who they met with today. Might make a video about that later. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about this mock draft. Personally, I really like it. Addresses two big positions of need in terms of that safety position, possibly free safety, possibly Buffalo nickel, which they really want to address, and you get a receiver who has a bunch of talent and I think can be a number one, if not a number two in this league. So thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please hit that like button, subscribe if you guys are new, and turn on those notifications so you never miss a video. Peace, guys.